No paramount objections. Great. Well, as I mentioned, I'm Kent Smith. Along with me is Toby Momsen from the Bruderhof, who's going to be helping us facilitate part of our conversation today. Alden Bass from Oklahoma City. Alden has a wonderful passion for intentional Christian community, was a co-founder of a community in St. Louis called Lotus House, and is a colleague with me and all of us in helping us to think deeply about the history of Christian community as well as its implications for the world in our time. So delighted that Alden can join us. Andrea Eiler is here with us. Actually, I should say your whole name, Andrea. Andrea Martini Eiler. We're so glad you're here. Andrea is with the Radical Catholic Worker in Bloomington, Indiana, and has a wonderful story of her life and experience in intentional Christian community that she'll be sharing with us. So let me just say a little bit about NCN. This network, this loosely gathered informal network. God likes to work with loosely gathered informal networks. You might have noticed. Back in the early 2000s, a number of people were exploring intentional Christian community, largely through the writings of people like Shane Claiborne and Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove, a number of others. A lot of those folks were jumping in, both feet first, but not really understanding a lot of the real dynamics for how to build or to do life together in intentional Christian community. And at some point, some of the leaders in that movement reached out to David Jansen, who is an elder, senior leader in the Reba Place Fellowship community near Chicago. And the Reba Place group decided to free David's time up to begin to travel among some of these communities just as a resource to help folks as they're troubleshooting, as they're trying to understand how better to build healthy community. And David did that wonderful work for a number of years, began to gather a team that he basically personally selected to help him with that. And over time, this loose coalition of friends and leaders have collaborated to help create what Nurturing Communities is today. So one of the core functions of NCN is to help people who are in newer established communities learn from one another, to be encouraged, to be empowered to troubleshoot challenges, serious impasses that come along sometimes in a community's life, and to continue to connect newer communities with older communities. We also host regular national and regional gatherings. I believe last year we had about 6 of those. This year we're doing our annual or our biannual all come gathering, and hopefully before the call is over, you'll hear more about that. And we offer resources both at the very practical nuts and bolts level, as well as theological and theoretical levels for groups in all stages of community life. The truth is that community life is an ongoing project. You never get there. You never get to where you've got it all figured out, sorted out for all time. I suspect anybody who's been on the journey a while kind of intuits that at this point. But wonderful things happen when we are able to connect with other people with different backgrounds, different perspectives, different histories. I like to say sometimes an ecosystem that has access to itself grows more healthy over time. And that certainly has been our experience in the Eden community. We are so enriched by our opportunities to interact with and engage with other people in the community of God's great kingdom. So we are so pleased that you're here today. Welcome to each one of you. We look forward to engaging with you a bit more deeply. What I want to do in the time that follows, open some space for you to hear from 2 of our leaders, specifically from Andrea and from Alden, on sort of the early stages of their stepping into community. I know for folks who are just getting started or are wondering what they could do to move in this direction in a deeper way, sometimes the most helpful thing is stories. Last time we talked a little bit about principle, and we'll maybe touch on that briefly today, but we felt like today it would be useful just for you all to get a chance to hear in a little bit more depth from each of these wonderful leaders what has been important for them in the starting of community. So I think, Andrea, if you're willing, I'd like to start with you, and then let's go to you, Alden.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to spend part of the morning together. My name is Andrea, and I'm currently at the Bloomington Christian Radical Catholic Worker in Bloomington, Indiana. My husband and I helped to start the community almost 16 years ago. And there were many different experiences that led to us coming to Bloomington to start a community. That would lead to a very long story. Part of what we did was we were living at St. Francis Catholic Worker in Chicago, Illinois. And we lived there for 2.5 years. We had our first child there, and realized in that process that we wanted to live in Christian community and wanted to raise a family and didn't want it to be St. Francis House Catholic Worker. So we visited many Catholic workers, and it is visiting other communities, starting back then for us and continuing to now, has always been such an enriching, knowledge building, emotionally sustaining process. And so that was really good for us. We assumed we would find a community that we would join 16 years ago. And then we didn't, though there were many wonderful ones. And my husband had gone to university here in Bloomington, and back when he was an undergrad, he had learned about the Catholic Worker in one of his classes. And he asked his professor after class, he said, "I would love to go visit the Bloomington Catholic Worker. Can you give me their contact information?" And she said, "Oh, there isn't one." And he was very disheartened by that. So that seed was planted many years ago for him, that maybe there should be a Bloomington Catholic Worker. So in our process of seeking where we should be, we actually ended up writing a letter to many churches and organizations in Bloomington saying, there's this couple with a baby from Chicago that would like to perhaps start a Catholic Worker. If anyone is interested, please join us at this little restaurant on a Saturday morning to talk about the possibilities. And we were being very positive, so we reserved a table for 6, and then 36 people came to that conversation. And it became very clear during that one morning that God was speaking, and we could very possibly, with a lot of help, move to Bloomington to start the Bloomington Catholic Worker. Some things that we really, really wanted from the beginning was, living in different communities or visiting other communities, you see what's amazing and see what you're not called to and what you don't think is amazing. And so we had that experience of some knowledge under our belts of knowing what we wanted. One thing that we wanted was we wanted our community to be Jesus-centered. And on this NCN call, I think that's an understood, of course, but in the Catholic Worker movement, that's not necessarily a guarantee that your Catholic worker is going to be Jesus-centered. But we really desired a Jesus-centered community, which at that time, St. Francis House, where we were living, was not. And we also, where we were living in community, there was not any form of reconciliation. It was really, everyone's just left up to their individualistic desires and whims as to how angry you might or might not get about something and how you might or might not communicate about that. And it was very unhealthy. And so beyond we really wanted a Jesus-centered community, we also wanted reconciliation as groundwork to what we were doing, to know that if we were to survive, we needed Jesus and we needed to be reconciled brothers and sisters. And then the third thing that we wanted very, very deeply was we felt called to hospitality, which is a tenet of the Catholic Worker in general, to live on the margins with the least of these, to be of service, but also to raise a family. And that's also not a thing that happens very often in the Catholic Worker, that you would have hospitality and babies or children all at the same time. And we really wanted to cultivate that. So from the beginning, those were our desires, our kind of foundational desires for community. And those have been met by the grace of God, and we continue to this day with a lot of stumbles and a lot of reconciliation. It's good we had that from the beginning, because that's a lot of what happens in our community and perhaps others. But yeah, that's kind of the foundational beginning of ours. So maybe in whatever small group I'm in later, I could answer questions as well.
Thank you, Andrea. Alden, you want to jump in here, bud?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. As Ken said at the beginning, my family was part of a community in inner city St. Louis for about 9 years. That community began in 2008, the end of 2008. Our story is a little different than Andrea's. My wife and I had come off of doing some mission work in Central America, and we're looking for a kind of cross-cultural experience when we moved back to the States. We'd also tried to practice some radical hospitality, but found it to be challenging with just the two of us. And so just through our experience, we recognized that if we were going to serve in a more radical way, we were going to need some help. So when we moved to St. Louis after being in Central America, we joined a campus ministry, and we sort of floated in the idea of getting a house and moving in together and trying to practice some ancient disciplines. And there were a lot of people interested, not 36, but enough to get together and get the house and start the community. We were all in our 20s, early 20s. We didn't really know what we were doing, but I actually think that was a saving grace for us. If we had studied more and known more about communities like Reba and Hope Fellowship, I think it would have been intimidating, and we might have never gotten off the ground. So the thing I would suggest is just jumping in. When you feel the call, follow that lead. It's easy to get paralyzed by how much one could do, and then the process miss what just needs to be done, what's right in front of us. So jump in. We, of course, did run into problems. It's hard to live in community with other people if you're not prepared. But we were, at that point, able to connect with some good people in the Nurturing, well, what became the Nurturing Communities Network, who invited us to come visit, shared some of their resources with us. So we began by studying classical models of Christian community, ancient models like the Benedictines. That was very interesting, led to good conversations. Didn't always translate into practical advice for the 21st century. So we did have a deep rooting, though, and felt like we were part of something larger. But it was really with our contact with especially Reba Fellowship, also some local Catholic worker houses in our case, that we came to understand what this could look like in a modern city. So that was really helpful, both looking back into ancient resources and then connecting to contemporary practitioners of intentional community. We, over time, became more and more involved in that larger network and felt very supported. It's easy to feel lonely as a community in a new place if there's not other communities in your city. So being part of a network, it was not just helpful in terms of practical wisdom, but it validated us, that we're doing something hard here, but other people are as well, responding to some of the same impulses to follow the call of Jesus. Initially, our life changed and morphed, as Andrea also indicated in their community. We did practice radical hospitality at first. We were in the inner city. There's lots of needs. Eventually, we welcomed children into our community, and that did change our priorities a little bit. Another thing is, over time, I think we got better at praying together, and prayer became more and more of a central part of our community, especially morning and evening prayer. And so we weren't very good at that at first, even though that was something we all believed was important. But as we lived together and stuck it out, we just really came to see how important it was for the identity of our community, for our own spirituality, but also for the health of our relationships. coming together for prayer twice a day, had all these other benefits that we probably couldn't have anticipated at the beginning. So I think that's just a few things. And again, I can elaborate more in breakouts as well if that's helpful. But jumping in, not waiting till everything's just right and perfect, but also leaning on other people, finding the resources, building relationships outside of the community, seeking that practical wisdom, taking comfort in processes and rules. So we did create a rule of common life pretty early on, which outlines some things like how we're going to mediate conflict when it arises. That was also incredibly helpful. We learned that from the ancient tradition, and then looking to people like the Bruderhof for, again, a contemporary expression of that. So building some structure into the community at first. Everyone's different. Not every community has a rule or structure, and that's okay. But in our case, it was very helpful. And then being open to the way things change, to the movements of the Spirit. A community can start, as an eco-village and end up as a neo-monastic expression. You just never quite know when you're getting into it where things are going to end up. So one has to have a certain openness to those movements. So I'm grateful to get to share with you. I look forward to chatting with you more in the breakouts, and I'll hand it back over to Ken.
Thank you, Alden and Andrea. This is such helpful perspective, and I think what we kind of all know is that every single expression of intentional community is going to look different, feel different, but these are really, really valuable narratives for us to be bearing in mind. Briefly, Eden Community began in a somewhat different way, but with a lot of the same hopes. Karen and I had spent a year in England in 2002. That was a wonderful deep dive into a post-Christendom culture. And it was confirming a lot of the things that I had been observing as a teacher and professor in Abilene with our university here, that North America was becoming more and more a post-Christendom context. Could see a lot of the forces that were at work in Europe also unfolding here. And so I spoke to our dean when we got back to the States and said, Jack, I think we really need to raise the bar on the level of experience our students are having in living the Christian life in this time. They're getting good book learning, but that doesn't produce leaders in any field, and it certainly doesn't produce leaders in the kingdom. We need people who are experiencing, putting into practice the things that they're learning about. And so we got the green light from the graduate school here to launch what we call the Missionary Residency for North America. And for the next 12 years, my wife Karen and I kind of co-led that amazing experience with about 75 students and their spouses, which was really a forming community over a year and a half period with new cohorts every so often. About a decade or so into that process, Karen and I looked at each other and said, this has been amazing and wonderful, and it still has some real limitations in what it's actually going to be able to accomplish for our students. There were three things we identified that were particularly challenging. One was our students, and these are folks in their typically mid-20s into their 30s, were coming to us more and more broken, more and more from often broken family backgrounds, often having largely raised themselves. Lots of them with big trust issues, and anyone who's ever tried to form community knows that if you've got a handful of people that have big trust issues, it can be a huge hurdle. And trying to do that over and over again every year or two was becoming just more and more difficult for us to contemplate. The second thing we observed was that the young people who were coming to us were mostly people who had spent their waking hours from preschool on through graduate school with people their own age. So mostly peer level imagination for how life works. And a lot of them were thinking, when I move to Dallas or Chicago or Singapore, I'm going to go to work for God, and I'm going to go to work for somebody, and we're going to really be on mission for the kingdom. And we're going to have a group of friends, and they're going to be people our own age who will kind of do this with us. And what we observed over and over again is that that didn't really work out so well in the real world. People who are trying to make a living and do life in the contemporary world are almost overwhelmed right out of the chutes with trying to make payments for rent or house, transportation, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week a lot of times, falling into bed exhausted on the weekends, hoping to recover to do the same on Monday, and realizing that if their imagination for Christian community is hanging out with people their own age, this simply doesn't work. You know, the people their own age are in the same boat. And when strife comes up in the marriage, or when they can't decide whether to buy a house or rent a house, when they don't know what to do about the car, when children come along, there are so many real things that happen in life that we need an intergenerational, interdependent community of God's love to navigate. That's how God designed people. That's how people have mostly lived for most of human history. And in the last 100 years, especially in the West, especially in North America, we have moved away from extended family, either biological or spiritual. And most people don't even have an imagination for the value of having grandparents or spiritual uncles or aunts or teenagers around. And so, you know, how do you tell a person who has never experienced that, hey, this is really important, you should go do this? Just, you know, it wasn't working. And that was the second thing we observed. The third was our students had no imagination for covenant community. So for nearly all the people that we were talking to when they came to us, their thought was, you know, I'll get a good job in Chicago. If I get a better offer in Denver, I'll be there. If I get a better job in New York, then we'll move there. No sense of, well, actually, this is not our life to live on our own initiative and wisdom. Actually, we are called people, called together by God into a community, and we must have the input of others as we go along. There needs to be a sense of shared commitment to the life that God has called us to. And that wasn't even on people's radar. The idea that we would have some form of agreement or shared understanding of why we're here, what God's up to among us, and that we will listen deeply to one another as we navigate the big decisions of life. So all of that led us to saying, you know what, we could talk about this stuff till the cows come home, until Jesus returns. People won't get it. We're going to have to do it. I had been drawn to this for my whole adult life, but had never actually seen the capacity or the possibility of doing this. But we finally just said about 2013, let's form a community that our students can come alongside, watch it happen, learn with us, and really apprentice in this way of life, as opposed to simply being told that it's a good idea and that they should do it. So that led really to the formation of the Eden community. We invited a few friends, some of them former students, who said yes. And as I mentioned in our meeting in January, we recently celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So that's a little bit about how Eden community got started. We had to navigate a lot of things that even working with mission teams, we had not had to work through. And that's been really important for us in our work going forward. So maybe that's enough by way of background for me. Toby, let me hand things to you at this point, and you can guide us into our breakout rooms.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes.
A couple of you have mentioned radical hospitality, and I wonder what your definition of that is. That's something that we find really important to practice, but I wonder what other people are meaning when they say that. Could you expand on that?
Andrea.
Yes. For us at the Bloomington Catholic Worker, a big part of radical hospitality is when a need comes to us, we need to sit down and prayerfully consider what we can do. And sometimes that's nothing. And that's not very radical, perhaps, but sometimes that's the answer. But if there is someone or some problem that comes in front of us, we say, okay, God wants us to consider this. For our community specifically, what we are regularly doing is housing single men, single women, sometimes single women with children, and sometimes families who would otherwise be homeless. So people come to us off of the streets, we interview them, we move them into our homes so they can have a safe, a loving family environment. So that's like the most regular form of radical hospitality that we do. But if we are asked by someone in our lives to offer hospitality in some way, we feel very firmly that we need to consider it and consider it together so that we can move forward however we decide.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to share further on radical hospitality? We actually had, it was the theme of an entire conference that happened to be hosted here at Spring Valley Bruderhof in 2017, where about 130 nurturing community people gathered. And we shared for several days about radical hospitality.
I'd like to say what we do, which is we have a very rural setting, and people come and they go, and for that reason, it's not the kind of communities that you guys are having at this time, but I see it as a lot more simple. It's just when people come, being ready to have a glass of iced tea or a snack, and if they need a place to stay overnight, making that happen if it's at all possible. When I see it, I guess I just think of my mother, who never turned away a stranger and always made them feel not just at home but special when they came. So that's what I thought about it for radical hospitality.
We actually did a video on that on our YouTube channel.
I didn't remember that we had done that.
Thank you. Okay, let us move on now to the question and answer and sharing in smaller groups. I believe Kent will divide us into 4 groups, Kent?
Yeah.
And that will be a chance for everyone to share and ask questions and share answers and experience in smaller groups. And then we'll come back together at about 5 or 10 minutes before the hour, I believe. 5 minutes before the hour. And we'll have some resources and announcements to share at the end and a conclusion. So go ahead, Kent.
Great, here we go. Okay, Joe, I guess I'll go ahead and assign the 2 of us into a room if that's okay.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
All right. Well, it looks like because you and I are hosts, we're not showing up on the
In the group.
possible participant groups. I'm not seeing a way to do that right here. Maybe I'm overlooking something, but
Let me see. I just opened it up too. So we've got one group without. I'm going to try to join room 4 and see what happens.
okay, great. Oh, yeah, that's what we can do. I'll join one of the others.
Jack, where are you coming from?
I'm in Colorado. I'm out on the prairie about 50 miles from Colorado Springs.
Okay. And do you know Evan Howard? He's out there in Colorado.
No, I don't.
Okay. I can't remember the name of the little place he's in. He's written a lot of books on community, and he's pretty involved. He's involved with our network here, but he's a good
I'll make a
person to
note
know.
of that.
Yeah, Evan Howard, great person to talk to.
And you are where?
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. I just designed a homestead for some folks in Seminole.
Oh yeah.
Real neat family down there. So I like Oklahoma. If it was not so hot. Thought I was gonna die, but other than that, it was good.
All right, are we all back? I think we are. Great, good to see everyone. Well, we had a wonderful little exchange in our smaller group about some real nuts and bolts issues of living together, sharing life deeply with other believers in community. We talked about resolving conflicts, making peace, and about finding common approaches to challenging issues like whether to use alcohol and how within our community, especially when we have people in recovery among us. I think we've all had some experience with that. I know we do here at the Broederhof. So that was good. I think we're approaching the 1 hour point, and I'll say that all of us hosts are willing to stay on longer for anyone that would like to continue to share and exchange up to the 90-minute mark, as much as is desired. So, but we want to wrap up around 1 hour. So in conclusion, I will mention a few things from Nurturing Communities Network. You are all aware of the website, and we're offering the different resources and invitations there. So feel free and check back there regularly. Of course, you're probably getting the emails every month or so from us announcing whatever's new. The big thing this year is the October Y'all Come International Gathering. It will be in Kentucky. And just a shout out that this is going to be our best yet gathering, probably the biggest. We've rented the entire campground at Camp Lucan, so we'll have a lot of beautiful space to use for meeting, for dwellings. There's nice rooms of several kinds. There's RV hookup locations for economy. There's bunkhouses, but there's very nice rooms for small groups, for large groups. There's childcare. A lot of details are on the website, on the page about that gathering. So if that's new to you, please check it out. Otherwise, I've just shared the link to the resources on these topics for this meeting. Regional gatherings, there's one coming up that's on the gatherings page. It's in Indiana. It's hosted by Andrea's community about a month from now. And typically in odd numbered years, at least around the COVID disruptions, Nurturing Communities is doing regional conferences. So we did 5 or 6 last year, as Kent mentioned, and then we'll probably do more of those next year. Otherwise, we would like to share the contact list of people's emails of everyone who is on this list, on this call. If you wish to not have your email shared, please let Joe Gatlin know. Just reply to one of those emails from Nurturing Communities. Otherwise, in a couple of days, we'll send this out so we can continue and have each other's emails to continue any conversations. Would any of you other hosts, Alden, Andrea, Kent, have anything to share as we conclude?
I would like to mention that our Eden Center has an annual workshop, the Foundations for Regenerative Culture Workshop, coming up in just about a month. It really is a deep dive, 5 days, 4 nights, into a lot of the core questions that people who are either forming community or wanting to continue to hone their community life together. It's very hands-on, but also a wonderful opportunity to learn a lot of resources in sort of the 10 big areas that we've identified as critical for effective long-term joining of community and in God's work and life. I'm going to send a chat here with the details on that. So edencenter.org/FRCW will take you straight to the information and registration page if you'd like to explore that further. We would welcome anyone on this call or people you know that are wanting to explore more about community to come and join us. So I think that's it for me, Toby.
Okay.
I
Anyone
just
else?
wanted to underline that, yes, please check out the NCN webpage about the gathering in May here in Indiana, and also just to freely use those emails to ask little and big questions about community. All of us are so happy to continue the conversation about something that is just kind of tweedling around in your brain. Happy to keep that conversation going.
Sure.
I'd like to add, if I could, we're always looking for people who would be interested in radical off-grid type living. We help people learn how to build, learn how to create electricity, learn how to gather water, learn how to do composting toilets, and learn how to grow food. So if any of your people are looking in that direction, we just say, come and see, and invite them to come. And hopefully there'll be some radical hospitality here.
Thank you. All right. Well, for anyone who needs to leave at this point, it's been great to be together. We always are energized and inspired, encouraged to meet like this and share with each other. We wish you a good day and God's blessing. Would love to be in touch further as much as you would wish. And some of us will stay on for any further conversation. I know our small group just got into things and ran out of time in the middle of a conversation. So that's open to continue.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Roberto, good to see you.
Yeah.
See you, friends.
In our Andrew and Kristen, do you want to stay on a bit? Great. We could talk further about, I know you're geographically a little ways from most of us, but as far as your question about contact and who might be able to be supportive friends to you, like Andrea was describing their, what do you call it, Andrea? Your group of advisory group?
Our oversight team.
Oversight team. What would be your wish if you, Andrew and Kristen?
I think it would be really interesting to have, or I think valuable to have oversight. Like one thing we've talked about just with starting community where we are, like we're 45 minutes out of town, but we do want to be still connected and place ourselves under a church community in Thunder Bay, like, or even just a church, like to be an arm of the ministry of a bigger body of believers, so that we're not like off starting a cult in the woods, you know, like we want to still come under the covering, but then there's not like an intentional community that we know of in the, you know, the church that we're attending or churches that we are in network with. So it would be good to have like maybe local pastor involved, but then you know, intentional community elsewhere, more knowledgeable people from the outside that kind of understand what goes on in community and those dynamics to also be involved in helping with that. Yeah.
Yes, Kent, would you have anything
Hmm.
to share on that? I think it's really important.
Yeah, well, I love the wisdom of what you're saying, Andrew, in terms of just being connected to the wider body of Christ. And I think the Lord's wonderfully creative in how He can lead us in that direction. My caution for you, and you probably get this already, but is just it's really easy to sort of sell an idea to someone who doesn't really get it, because when you talk about intentional Christian community or the desire to be on mission with God in a small group, people read so many things into that, and of course it's based on their own life history and their theology and all those things. So I would just say, wherever it is, whether it's local or translocal, have long and deep conversations, do things together before you make any kind of even slightly binding agreements, to walk together. Just because, I was saying in our first session, a group of people who don't share an aim are aimless. And ultimately that leads to people going in different directions. That leads to hurt. And so, yes to connecting, but I'd say let Jesus be the one who builds those bridges. Let Jesus be the one who highlights the people, again, whether local or translocal, who are really going to be a good fit, a good alignment, a good connection for you guys. And yeah, by all means, I love the number of generations in your room there, right there, where you and your wife are. That's precious and wonderful. But you need some old timers like Joe Gatlin or Toby Momsen in conversation with you. You notice I point them out as old timers. But we need intergenerational.
Yeah.
The culture of the kingdom needs to be intergenerational. You also would be helped by some other young couples, some that were a little further along, and a few teenagers to help out too. So,
Our own, but
yep. Well, Yep. But that would be my first thoughts anyway, to what you're saying there.
One thing I would encourage you to do is really put some effort into forming relationships with some of the people in this network. And then a good role model, I think, is the persistent widow who just, in Jesus's parable, who just keeps coming and asking. That was our experience here in Waco with Hope Fellowship. We just kept showing up at the door of various people saying, yeah, we feel really called to what we're doing, and we really needed that connection with some other people that were doing it. So that I think is really, if you can come to Kentucky, I know it's a long ways from Thunder Bay, but I think you'll meet a lot of good people, and then just don't be afraid to ask. I mean, that's part of the gospel too, is, we just need to ask. So, yeah.
Yeah. I got it in my calendar. I don't know if we're going to make it, but I put it in the calendar for Kentucky. So
Great.
Good.
So part of our commitment from our goal from Nurturing Community is to make sure that cost is not an obstacle for anyone who wants to come to that gathering. So we want to make that reality.
Cool.
We would love to see you there.
Thank you.
thank you.
Do you, hey Toby, do you guys coordinate ride sharing from different parts of the country?
We're happy to try, sure. We're talking about it up here just with some friends in Pittsburgh. We're 90 miles south of Pittsburgh, but we are probably going to share some rides between here and Kentucky for that conference.
Good to know.
And while if people choose to fly and get into Louisville, we'll work on transportation from Louisville to Lucan, Camp Lucan too.
There's the added draw of that conference that the Red River Gorge is there for rock climbing afterwards. So
There's a number of things. There's a canyon or something down there too.
yeah,
So
we've been down to the Red twice. Well, I've been twice. You've been once. Yeah, for climbing. So yeah.
Joe, we should really take a few days and rope in some of those things. We've never managed to do any of that down there, but we should. I'm half kidding.
I'm not. I'll bring the ropes and we can do a rappelling session.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I have a
Well, where are you
question.
guys in Colorado?
What's that?
You guys are in I guess, yeah, Jack answered.
We're close
Where-
to Colorado Springs.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So if you're coming this way, we have a place for you.
Thanks. What type of setup do you have? You mentioned off grid too.
Yes.
Just curious what type of setup. So that's another part of our, as we invite people in, we are off grid, you know, and it's not easy to get hydro here or septic. And we're happy living this life, but that doesn't mean everyone, the ideals seem good to a lot of people as we talk about it, but I don't know in reality if they actually will love it, if that makes sense, as much as we have.
My experience is that everybody loves the idea and very few will actually implement it and because it's really different. It's got different challenges. I happen to love it. And my wife, who was an opera star, not an opera star, an opera singer from LA, from the LA Opera, lived here for 20 years. And she really enjoyed it. So it just takes a certain kind of individual, you know, that likes it. And it's not like, you know, we try not to make it like camping. It's comfortable living, but it's just different.
Naomi was trying to ask a question, I think.
Go ahead, Naomi.
Thank you. And this follows through from the discussion we started in our group with Kent. I'll just put this question out to the larger group here. I'm someone who's more than, I have visited many intentional communities. I have lived in one for a short term. And something like Andrea, I know that just the way the Lord has worked in my life, vision, convictions, that I am not about joining an existent community or even beginning one, because it's far too early to think of beginning one. But I am in the place of needing and wanting to cast a vision for a particular type of semi-monastic or intentional community within the evangelical Christian tradition. And just wondering what thoughts. I'm a writer more so than a talker. So I'm thinking I likely need to start in the writing, but just wondering what thoughts or inputs others of you have. And Kent gave me some amazing encouragement in that direction. That I'm not alone in this idea of feeling the need to cast, gestating the vision kind of thing. Apparently I'm not alone. Well, Kent, I will say you just mentioned briefly the words the Holy Spirit, and I will say that one of the booklets from the Bruderhof, which the title escapes me at the moment, but it has been a tremendous encouragement to me also in seeing so much, appreciating what your tradition has given you and what it offers, and yet being able to see a next step that's needed. One of the Bruderhof founding fathers' writings, or the teachers that influenced your founding fathers, has been a great encouragement to me in that.
Happy to hear. Was that discipleship?
Thank you, Toby. I've got discipleship. No, it wasn't. I can grab the title just a second.
Okay.
I was just mentioning to Naomi that our friend Evan Howard has been writing recently about the Beguine option, which sounds a lot like what she's describing, this early Middle Ages community that said we don't want to go full on monastic, but we feel very called to do life together on mission with God among those who are have great need among us. And Evan's claim, and I think he's right, is that this expression right down through Christian history has been often an under the radar way that people have felt called. I know, Alden, you've done a lot of thinking about this. And I think in our time, just to again reaffirm, Naomi, your sense of passion for this, there are more and more people, both inside the existing church as well as a lot of the young people that I work with in the university situation, who are openly wondering about something like this. They often don't have language for it, but I think we need writers, we need thinkers who are awake to the fact that this is not a new invention and this is not a cult. This is actually the way of life that Jesus invited his own disciples into and has been represented right down through Christian history. So just to say again, I think you're onto something important. Alden, would you have anything you'd want to add?
No, I echo what you said.
Alden's one
Toby,
of those rare people who has plenty to say and doesn't always feel a need to say it. I so appreciate that.
Toby, in answer to your question, it's from the Bloomhart series, Make Way for the Spirit.
Okay.
My Father's Battle and Mine, Christoph Friedhart Bloomhart.
Do you have?
Incredible encouragement to me as I've been working through parts of that.
Good. Do you have the book there?
Well, I've printed off a number of the pages from the PDF that I grabbed from your site.
Okay. You're in Ottawa. Am I right? Yes. Naomi, good. I'm very interested what, around you. I mean, is there a circle of friends or others around you that is interested, that's connecting, wanting this to share life like you're envisioning?
There was a very long time ago, back in the 70s, 80s, there was a lot. And in fact, an intentional community was planted that ran for 10 or 15 years. Now, as you know, I am aging and my connections have aged. And actually, I've been away from this city for 30 years. I've just come back in the last few years. So starting to reconnect. So no, I don't have nearby people.
All right, so there's some history there in earlier years. Okay. We are hoping to send a couple from our northernmost New York State community up into Ontario this summer to visit anyone who'd like to receive them. So they might also get up to Thunder Bay if you would like that, Andrew and Kirsten. Just for encouragement and learning from each other. So
That'd be cool.
Just real quick, I was going to ask if Andrew would like me to send them a QR code in the direct chat for our YouTube channel. It might address, there's a bunch of videos on there about off-grid living and specifically about sanitation and water, things that, I don't know, that you might find interesting. Is it all right if I send that to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Great. Oh, I just sent that.
Aaron, would you have any more to share with us? I'm curious about what's happening around you.
Yeah. Well, just as Naomi was talking, I actually have a publishing company, Naomi. So if you want to write something, I'd be glad to take a look at it. In fact, I've been writing on the subject of community, even though we're still young. I have tons of questions, and I don't want to monopolize our time, but we're really getting into the nuts and bolts process because we've been meeting with the group for 2 years now, and so now we're starting to ask the practical questions about what that would look like. And we actually considered taking our summer and just visiting as many communities as we could. So maybe we could actually talk in person. My family, we got 2 little kids too with some of you. So I definitely want to be in touch because we're pretty serious about it at this point.
Wonderful. We would be happy to be in touch.
I'd
Where
like
you
to
at, Aaron?
invite, I'd like to invite anyone who is on the road. If you need a place to stay, we're always here, and we're love to have people come and see what we're doing. So just give us a call. All of our stuff, if you just look up my name or you look up Abunda Culture, our telephone number is there. Just give us a call, let us know you're coming, and we'd love to see you.
Thank you. Is there
Where you
anyone
at,
else?
Aaron?
Oh yeah, I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay, very good. Looks like I'm gonna be headed back to Tennessee pretty soon.
Great. Anyone else like to ask or share anything? Otherwise, we could.
Toby,
mean,
I'd just
some of our
appreciate a
questions-
word with you at the end, Toby,
Sure.
before we all disconnect.
Sure.
If I could
Okay.
just have a word with you then, thank you.
Okay, fine.
I'd love to hear Aaron, like we're wrestling through kind of formation too, but what are like the, you know, like 1 or 2 burning questions that you've got? It'd be good to hear what like different people.
Yeah, right now it's just a lot of the questions for us are financial ones. And interestingly, we're not really we're not rich, but a lot of the people in our group have money, so actually resources aren't really a problem for us. It's just the how do we model it? And one of the things we're doing is maybe like the Bruderhof. I'm less familiar with a lot of other communities, like having a means to provide for ourselves, So I've been talking to business people about investing in businesses that the community could do. Because our goal is self-sustainability, and I don't think it's a long shot at all, but we're just trying to figure out how exactly that's going to work and what kind of legal entity we want to become. So those are the complicated questions we're sorting out now.
Aaron, I just wanted to thank you, skipping back. Thank you so much for that generous offer that there might be something. And if your email address would be included in the list, I will perhaps be in touch with you in the future. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, mine will be included.
Thank you.
Are you, Aaron, are you thinking of like shared purse or just like an account to kind of help each other out, or?
I'm personally open to anything. I'm not like, I'm not trying to hold on to my money and my resources or whatever. Like I'm putting everything on the table personally, and using my company to continue to generate income. But yeah, for a lot of the other people in the group, it's a big question mark. I think everybody's open and willing, but it's just a knowledge problem. Like, how do we make this work? And that's where I think being in touch with other community members or community participants, like, I think, because I think on the philosophical level, like we've come to an agreement on like, hey, community is valuable. In fact, shameless plug, but if you guys want to check it, I just published a book last week on just the value of community. It's called Community Changes Everything. And so I'm not writing, this is not an experience book. This is trying to make a biblical and historical case for community, and commenting on why our culture, I think, doesn't value community. So that's what the book is. So don't read it for my long experience in community, because just you won't find that there. But yeah, I do look forward to delving into some of these questions with maybe some of you on this call who are experienced in kind of the financial aspect of what it takes to run a community.
We met with Joe for like a Zoom call, and that was really helpful. talking
Mm.
about. Yeah.
Not to be repetitive, but the inner foundation of common purpose and agreement and a sense of unity, united purpose of those wanting to live together, share life, trust each other, work out differences, you know, to really, I think I can't help saying that the inner foundation is the most important, and the practical things will take time and won't be got perfect the first time, the first iteration. But if there really is a sense of a common purpose and a shared sense of calling to a goal, to a goal and some fundamental, you know, values. We are going to stay together. We feel called together to be a presence, a witness to God's kingdom in this place. And some of those basics that we've been talking about that Kent shared about on our previous call, which is recorded and it is on the website. That just the inner foundation is the bedrock. It's the most important. And the practical expressions will be worked out from that and based on that. Any other thoughts? It's been great to share also some practical and nitty-gritty parts of this. We're all on journeys that are part of one big journey to live out kingdom life here where we're placed. It's wonderful to be together in that.
May I just say briefly, Andrea, once again, I really appreciated your 5-minute story there. There's some good resonance, and I look forward to following up with you as the Lord leads. And Andrew, I'm so glad there's another Canadian. Woohoo! We're both in Ontario even.
Yeah, we're both in Ontario and 17 hours apart. Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, we've filled the time and thankful for the meeting with you all and wish you all a wonderful Saturday. What's left of it. Look forward to future connections and sharing with each other. And see you all in Kentucky.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
Great meeting you
so
all.
All right.
much.
God bless.
Thank you,
I
everyone.
will stay on for a bit.
Now, everyone.
Toby, I just wanted to thank you so much for the discipleship gift and your note, the book and your note
Sure.
that I got from you and your wife.